Today's Tuesday, October 19th, 2021, and today's video is about sleep and how that's affected with time moving more quickly. First, I want to just mention this comment. I pinned it on my last video. How today's generation is called Zoomers, like going fast, just like the app called Zoom. And also Gen Z, like the last letter of the alphabet. So I think those are really good observations. Okay, but today's video is about time, and I just want to go through as fast as I can, just give these examples. Leave your own examples in the comments if you have them. Does nap time still exist in schools? No, it doesn't. In most places, so the once ubiquitous kindergarten nap has fallen by the wayside. How does stuff like this that is just tried and true, generation after generation, kindergarteners have been taking naps for how long, and it's just gone all of a sudden? And nobody asks why, it's just the way things are now. I think that it has everything to do with time moving more quickly. And so here, this is just something interesting. When did they take naps out of kindergarten? As far back as 2000, a New York Times article titled "No Time for Napping in Today's Kindergarten." Really interesting title. There's no time for it. No time for napping in today's kindergarten. And it's really interesting to me that it goes back to 2000, because I kind of think of the year 2000 as like the beginning of, okay, time is accelerating now at a really fast rate. I think that that's what the whole Y2K thing. I don't really think that the Y2K was worrying about the computers. I think that it kind of was marking the beginning of a new era, and one in which time is moving more quickly. And that's just a big thing, that NASA Outer Space Fantasyland is a total lie. The day-night cycle has not been constant throughout history. I think the day-night cycle, the length of it, has always been changing. And sometimes probably it's been quicker, sometimes it's probably been slower. I just personally think of probably a lot of the big golden eras when people were painting these huge paintings with 50 fully rendered people and elaborate clothing and very skilled craftsmen of all sorts of types, and people lived fancily. I think that those days were probably really long and drawn out. They tell us, I mean, I'll talk about it later in the video. They tell us about, oh, people used to get up in the middle of the night and do stuff and then go back to sleep. You know how I know that I've heard this before, how a lot of people, they say, used to kind of have that kind of sleep cycle where they would get up in the middle of the night, light a candle and go do a bunch of stuff, write letters, and then they'd go back to sleep. And anyways, back to the kindergarten thing. I think that there's two things going on here. Yes, there's no time for naps anymore because the days are so short, so there's not enough time to fit it into the curriculum. And but and I've done a video on that before, how they only remove things from the curriculum these days. You know how they don't teach cursive anymore? You know how kids these days don't know anything, and they'll show you, have you ever seen the memes of, they'll show you like old math problems. They'll show you a math textbook from like the early 1900s and just how difficult it is compared to today. And so people have only, and it's really not even their fault. So I don't want to say gotten dumber, but it's just that things have clearly changed in the way that we learn, and people leave high school these days still looking like babies and still basically knowing nothing, having no self-confidence, because, well, they really are probably still middle school aged. Anyways, back to sleeping. I think that there's two things going on here. So yes, one, they have to cut all sorts of things from the curriculum these days because the days are so short. But two, it seems like kindergarten-aged children these days don't even need naps, which is a little counterintuitive because the way that we're aging is different. So a 5-year-old today is probably more like a 4-year-old in times past. But see, even that is not a huge difference. When the numbers are small, the difference is going to be less. But I think what it is now is that the days are so short that young children of that age, of the kindergarten age, they don't even need a nap to get through the day because the days are so short. The day's just over. They're, by the time, they just don't need it anymore. They can live in today's short days just fine without needing a nap. And I mean, I have some experience with this because I have children. So just some things that I think of when it comes to children and nap cycles and all that. My 3-year-old, their nap cycle it's just terrible. When they take a nap, it ruins it because then they stay up super late. And so, I mean, that's another thing that I'll get to later. All sorts of people stay up way late these days because it's just too easy to stay up late. It used to be hard to stay up late, at least for me personally. I'm not a night person. And so yeah, that's one other point I wanted to make, that around the 3-year-old, at least for me, for my children, they hit this awkward stage these days where when they take a nap, it's almost detrimental because now they've taken a nap and now they're going to stay up way late. And so yeah, staying up late is something that I see young children doing these days. It never used to be like that. Children didn't used to stay up late, but I've noticed that these days tons of children stay up really late and easily. They easily stay up late. Yes, they have electronic devices to stare at, but we had them too when I was growing up. We had TVs, we had stuff like that. So anyways, I think that's mostly what I have to say about the children's sleep cycle. I think that 5-year-olds today don't even need a nap because the days are so short. And yeah, really interesting that October 23rd, that's at 33, 10, 23, 33. And I think this is a big article. The fact that New York Times was the first one to say, "Oh, there's no time for napping." It's like basically predictive programming for letting people know, "Oh, this is how things are going to go." And yeah, I think it's interesting that it's October 23rd. And just the title, "No Time for Napping." They knew that they were running out of time. Okay, now just in general, I'll just say for people in general, I've made the observation that tons of people have really screwed up sleep cycles these days. And yes, we do have just a lot of screens in our faces, bright screens in people's faces. So I will say that it's easier. Like me personally, I said I'm not a night person, but yeah, it is easier for me to stay up late if I'm on an electronic device. That is one way that I can easily stay up all through the night. If I'm on a computer, I could stay up through the night easily. But even if I'm not on a computer, I've noticed that I can easily stay up really late. If I don't actively put myself to bed, it'll easily become midnight. And that's not how I used to be like 10 years ago. And that's one thing people are going to say, "Oh, you're older now, so it's easier for you to stay up." No, I mean, I remember being in my early 20s and I still was not a night person. I couldn't stay up past, it used to be hard for me to stay up past 10. Like somewhat recently, 10 years ago. But nowadays, I could stay up till 2 a.m. easily. So this is kind of what I talked about, morning people versus night people. I've noticed that just tons of people uh, that I mean, I do know some personal people, but a lot of people online too that I've just hear talk about their sleep schedules. People's sleep schedules seem insane to me now. People that they stay up all through the night until like 7 a.m. They go to bed at 7 a.m. They wake up, I don't know, 3 p.m., 5 p.m. And it's just become very commonplace. I don't think that this used to be anything like this. So leave a comment. Have you noticed that people's sleep schedules seem way wackier than back in the day? I don't think it was that common for people to have very bizarre sleep schedules. Here's an interesting comment. I have a wind-up pocket watch which was made in 1910. There's a slider on the inside to adjust how long a second duration is. That's because people have known that what a second is not constant. And now, of course, I think that the people that push this kind of stuff are obviously for Team Evil. But you know how people talk about, "Oh, we're entering the age of Aquarius." Oh, that type of talk. I think that there's been eras, and I hinted at this earlier. I think that the length of a second, the length of a day-night cycle has always been variable, and I think that there have been eras that were really particularly slow, dragging on, and then there's been eras that are fast, going a lot faster, and I think that that could be a part of the whole, "Oh, we're moving into the age of Aquarius might be some sort of Team Evil mysticism talk for things are changing on a big scale, such as the day-night cycles getting shorter and shorter. Adjusting the speed of your grandfather clock. People knew, and there are a lot of weird words too. Pendulum bob, and you twist a nut to change the length of a second on your grandfather clock. They've known that you need a second to be variable. If we really lived in outer space fantasy land, a second would not be variable. And so they give us all sorts of fantastical tales of people of old. I don't even believe that Leonardo da Vinci's like one person. I think in cases like that where they give us some big name, oh, Leonardo da Vinci, probably like a team of people. These people used to work in workshops, and them and all their understudies would be working on things, and they just slap one person's name on it. And I think they just totally made up a bunch of stories, because the 20-minute naps every 4 hours, that's insane. There's just no... To me, this just seems like a totally made-up story. They want you to think that these fantastical people had fantastical attributes about them. And the Uberman sleep cycle. Okay, I think that's really ridiculous. But what I do think about this is I do remember being taught about, I think I mentioned it earlier, times past that people would break up their night cycle. They would just get up in the middle of the night, do things for a few hours, and then go back to sleep. And that fits in very well with if there was a time where days were extra long. And, using just like the 90s as that's my reference. That's what I grew up in. There probably were times that were even slower than the 90s. And so to me, it would seem reasonable that just like today, things seem accelerated. If there was a time where things felt really slow and really dragging out, it would make sense to me that people would get up in the middle of the night, do some stuff, and then go back to sleep. So I think this might be my last... Oh no, this and Joshua's Long Day. There's this notion of the fourth watch in the Bible, and it's the last watch of the night when the satanic agents who went out. 3 a.m. 3 a.m. is the witching hour. And so my point that I want to make about this is, if you were going to break up the night into a night watch these days, you would not need 4 watches of the night. It used to be hard to stay up all night. It reminds me of, when Jesus was praying and told the disciples, told the apostles to stay awake. They kept falling asleep. It used to be really hard to stay awake. And they used to have 4 watches throughout the night. To me, that seems crazy that you would need 4 watches throughout the night. 2 people tops. You would need one person to stay awake from, nightfall to 2 a.m., and you need the other person to stay awake from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m., and that's not hard. But, so, whatever. I think I made my point. You don't need 4 people to stay up throughout the night these days. And last but not least, Joshua's Long Day. Joshua's Long Day proves that the sun, that it's not a spaceball situation. The NASA is not right. The sun can stop. And so there you go. If the sun can be halted and stopped, then the sun can be sped up. The sun cycle can be slowed down. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed the video. God bless everyone.